Well, good afternoon. Good morning for a lot of you Cardinals fans out there. As we record this, it is Thursday afternoon at 5:40, and I turned the game off, but did they get the W? Did the Cardinals finally get a win in San Francisco? It looks like they did. Pretty good game there. So hopefully that will turn their fortunes up. I'm Jason Hill, along with Heather, our site manager over at Viva Alberto's, and two of our lead writers, Adam Akbani and Gabe Simmons, from the site. It is good to be with you on this looking up day. I'm going to choose to look up today. A new podcast. I don't know what we're going to call this one. The Cardinals suck, maybe, or life is miserable, maybe, or don't jump out of the upper story window of your hotel. Cardinals broadcasters, something like that is what we're going to call this one. But and just because the Cardinals right now seem like a totally disorganized mess, this podcast is also going to be a disorganized mess, and we're going to try our best to flub it along the way because, hey, that's just what we do right now in St. Louis. So, yeah, hey, let's talk about what we've seen so far and the big news that we had, I think that came out yesterday. Jordan Walker was sent down to the minors to get some work in, get some extra time, learn how to hit the ball in the air. Different sort of reports from the media on that. And the great Taylor Motter is back in St. Louis to fill some role on the team. I'm not exactly sure what. Let's get our reaction, starting with the guy who wrote the not breaking news, but the news article about it. Let's start with Gabe. Gabe, Jordan Walker, what's going on, man?
Well, I mean, if you read my article yesterday, I guess by the time people listen to this, I kind of thought it was always kind of stupid that they had Jordan Walker make the opening day roster. And pretty much what has happened is kind of predictable. The main thing was that there wasn't a huge reason to think he'd be ready for the major leagues, in my opinion, because he was good, not like elite in AA. Dylan Carlson hit better and Oscar Tavares hit better, and both of them touched AAA, and both of them struggled mightily. And to Walker's credit, from a hitting perspective, he did probably better than you could reasonably expect. But I think they probably were at least a little aware of how his defense was. He'd only played 30 games total in a professional setting in the outfield, and I don't think he even played outfield at all, like in high school, as far as I know, because he started at shortstop and moved to third. So, I mean, that's about as green as you can be. And if you look at it for a comparison point, Nolan Gorman last year, he moved to second base and they had him start the year in AAA, and he both had AAA experience before opening day last year and had like 70 or 80 games experience at second base, but they still thought he should play to start the year in AAA. So I just didn't really understand why he made the team. And the other reason was just because he's, in my opinion, wasn't one of the four best outfielders on the roster. Maybe five if you're a big Yohan Yepes fan. And six, I guess, if you think Brendan Donovan counts as an outfielder. So those are my thoughts, basically, is that it makes sense what they did. Didn't really make sense to me on opening day, but we'll see how it goes going forward for Jordan Walker in AAA.
Yeah. Heather, you're the unofficial president of the Jordan Walker Fan Girl Club. So you tell me, how are you feeling? Are you doing okay? Are you in a safe place mentally?
That was kind of something I figured was going to happen once they started losing a bunch. It seemed like a move. Sometimes when the team starts, and things don't go so well, it seems like they want to make moves to mix things up. And I know with the outfield situation, they had quite a few players for limited spots, and they wanted to maybe find some more consistency with those positions. I don't think Walker was doing necessarily bad, but there were some concerning things. Actually, Ben Clemens had a really good write-up on Walker's hitting profile. He was hitting a lot of balls on the ground. So it was very interesting. It was kind of bummerific. I'm gonna be like, thanks a lot, Ben. But but he brought up some good points in that article. So I don't think it will hurt for him to get some regular playing time in AAA, get some more reps in the outfield, because the outfield was a little bit of an adventure. But I do think it's more of a move just to like make a move than anything that's going to substantially affect the team. I don't think they lost the games they did because of Jordan Walker, or you got to get Taylor Motter's bat in the lineup, type of thing. So it's a bummer. It makes me less excited to watch them, which is saying a lot because they're not super exciting to watch right now, especially with these West Coast games. They're brutal. I need this to be over. I can't do another one. I can't do any more of these. But
by the way, our brave site manager staying up to do the game recaps from the West Coast.
They're brutal. I'm staying up, using that term loosely. I usually end up asleep on the couch, and then I'll hear something, and I'm like, "Oh no, what was it?" Something crucial, like a Tommy Edman crucial error to put a runner on that's eventually going to score, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, Adam, I don't know if you've looked at the StatCast stuff, but I've pulled up Walker's StatCast page here on Baseball Savant. By the way, if you're not using Baseball Savant, readers and listeners, I can't recommend it high enough. If you want to understand some of the moves that the Cardinals are making and the decisions they're making, Baseball Savant is the place to go to see that information. And I think Walker's a really good example of that. If you look, for example, at his expected batting average, it's 64th percentile. Expected BA of 262, expected slugging 372. Some that you think is not so bad, his actual StatCast slash line and actual slash line is not that bad. But then you look at the underlying metrics, whiff percentage in the 22nd percentile, chase rate in the 15th percentile, walk rate actually climbed the last couple of days that he was in the majors, is a 12th percentile. That's a walk rate of 3.8%. He's not K'ing a lot. He is hitting the ball hard. He had that hit streak. His max exit velocity is extremely encouraging at 113.9. But Adam, there was a lot of trouble signs underneath a hitting streak and sort of surviving off of instincts.
Yeah, no. First I wanted to say I agree with Gabe on the fact that I was surprised in seeing him make the team out of the opening day. Right. I thought for sure, even though he was really impressive, that shoulder injury kind of hampered him, and I thought he was going to get assigned to Memphis. So, and especially given the options that already exist. And Heather also nailed it too when she said, I think this team is trying to compete. Obviously, the record doesn't exactly show it, but the run differential and kind of the peripherals that we talked about already suggest that the team probably isn't doing as poorly as we think they are. It's just a little bit of unluck there. But yeah, no, Jason, I think you're right. In terms of really with Jordan Walker, and you look kind of deeply into him, he's obviously crushing fastballs and he's crushing not off-speed pitches, breaking balls away and towards the top of the plate too, and in the middle. But obviously those changeups, he's not really able to drop the bat head and hit them. And when he does, he's hitting everything onto the ground, as Heather mentioned. It's like I think I did the article, I think off the top of my head, was like a 2 or 3 degree launch angle. So if you're trying to win and if you've got a prospect with the caliber of Jordan Walker, obviously that exit velo is going to play to the tune of like a league average slash line right now. But if you're trying to win, that defense is really, really hampering you in right field. I personally thought they could have figured it out, like as a roster is right now. I think that like that talent right now is just too good to be sending down to AAA. But I can kind of see to a degree why they did it. But overall, I think it's not going to be a hampered down the road. I think if you can tweak that approach a little bit, and especially that discipline and that defense, he's going to be a star someday. It's just a matter of time. And he's still the youngest player in Major League Baseball before he just got sent down. So the stars, the sky's the limit, but still got some things to work on.
Yeah, it kind of, this is a little bit weird, and some of you guys listening and watching might find this a little odd, but I almost think it's a good thing to let them get a taste, these young prospects, a taste of what they don't know, right? So they can figure out where the holes in their swing and their approach are, and then go down and work on it a little bit. And I remember the same problem, a little different because Carlson never hit the ball hard at the beginning of his career, but Carlson started seeing like a crazy high percentage of change-ups early in his major league career, and he would look like a fool, no offense, Dylan. No offense, Jeff Carlson, but he just really struggled against them, and he went down and came back, and his performance against off-speed pitches improved dramatically. And it's almost like he had to see what they looked like and then sort of think about it and work on it a little bit, and then come back and he was more ready to go. And kind of the same thing with Carlson or with Walker. He's not seeing the same rate of off-speed pitches because pitchers just don't throw a huge percentage of off-speed. But at 11.2% of his pitches seen, 30 pitches, basically no positive contact, 4 batted ball events against an off-speed pitch, 0 batting average, expecting slugging percentage, 157 off of off-speed. So, and Adam mentioned it, like he has performed well against breaking pitches, surprisingly. Like I think he's looked pretty good against sliders, and I expected that to be a real area of concern for him. 462 slugging percentage, actual slugging percentage against sliders, but you dig into the details and it gets a little bit rough there. Expected slugging is just 341. Expected WOBA off of breaking pitches is just 290. So, the launch angle there on some of those also not very good, but it's like he flashed the tools and the potential and the upper echelon bat that we hope that he will eventually have, and then found out really quickly how tough major league pitching is. And now he can kind of reset and get a look at that and figure out what it means to play the outfield. And, maybe in 2 or 3 weeks, we'll see him back. How long do you guys think he's going to be down? Let me throw that out. Is it going to be based on performance? Or are we just looking at a time frame here, or is it about an injury, or what do you guys think?
I would say it's probably going to be based on performance at this point. I feel like, because you got a sample size and you got to see what he's okay and what he can't do. I think there's a lot to work on from the approach range. I think he was kind of pushed a little early, like I mentioned. Still some things he can work on at AAA, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's back up by summertime or, potentially by July. But I think at this point, it's really just you're going to have to see and wait. I think there's no set time.
Yeah. I mean, they're probably waiting for him to hit more fly balls and probably to a certain extent how he does against changeups and if his defense is improved. Because honestly, I'm not that concerned about his bat, even right now, although I am concerned about his approach. That was more my concern than his performance against the changeup or something. It's funny you mentioned Carlson because that's exactly who I thought of when you mentioned the problems with changeup. Because I remember Carlson in 2020, my God. If they threw a change, he was whiffing.
It was bad. It was bad. Yeah.
But yeah, the strikeout to walk ratio, he's just a little too aggressive, and understandably, because he wants to get out of the gate swinging, and it worked for a while, and maybe that just made his problems worse because he was getting rewarded, so to speak, for chasing everything. So, yeah, I just hope to see that he starts taking a few more walks and is able to not look like a deer in the headlights in the outfield, hopefully. And if he could do that in a month, it'll be up in a month. If he could do that in 2 months, if his bat is good enough, they'll deal with the defense. So I don't even think that's necessarily the deciding factor. But, yeah, I'd be mostly focused on the walks and strikeouts because you can get away with not doing that in AAA. I don't know about the majors.
Yeah. Now, let me throw a scenario out because I kind of agree with you. I don't know, Heather, if you have a totally different take or you're kind of the same.
Yeah, I think about a month we'll see him.
So let me throw a possibility out here to you. And I'm not suggesting this. I just want to get your reaction to it. So one of the reasons that I think that Carlson was put on the roster, not the main reason, just one of them, was that he had to be on the opening day roster to get the draft pick if he was a high finisher in the Rookie of the Year.
Walker?
Walker. Yeah, well,
Okay.
well, really, anyone. They have to be on there at the beginning of the year to get that draft pick compensation for Rookie of the Year finishing. So it made sense in my mind, regardless of how ready you thought he was. I realize that statement doesn't make a lot of sense, but if you get him on opening day, then you can always send him down. If you don't get him on opening day, then you really have no shot. You can't get that draft pick. So activate him and then see and deactivate him. So my point being that he will still get a full year of service time if he stays down for like no less than somewhere between 14 and 17 days. So I went and looked just as again this comparison because it's not exactly the same. Carlson could play center. He was a great defender. Well, not a great defender. He was a solid enough, a playable defender when he arrived. Um, Carlson went down for 13 days in 2020. Now, again, that was 2020, and there probably was some sort of extenuating circumstances with this as far as the rest of the roster. But 13 days would, if he did what Carlson did, that would get him back in time that they would still have a possibility of the draft pick. Do you think that's going to weigh into their minds at all, or do you think this is they just really want to see Walker work and not worry about the benefits at this point?
So you actually just answered a question that I meant to look up prior to recording, which was how that draft pick compensation works, because it was something on the front of my mind as well.
Yeah,
so
someone asked me. We were talking about it a couple of days ago, and someone asked me, so I looked it up, and that's I didn't get the final details because it's a percentage, and I didn't look at the start date, end date of season, and do the math, but it's something. I meant
to research it beforehand, but then I'm like, I'll just ask. It'll be good to find out. Everyone can tell me, But I don't know how much it plays into the Cardinals' thought process, but it was one of the first things I thought of. So I can't imagine they aren't thinking about it. I don't know. I kind of agree, though, that is part of the thinking with why they had him on the opening day roster, though, for sure.
Yeah.
I think somebody will have to get injured for that to happen, personally, because, I mean, unless he hits 10 home runs in 10 days or something ridiculous, and they're like, okay, well, we'll roll with this and see if it works again. But I think for the most part, somebody's going to have to get injured, which might happen. Who knows?
Yeah. With Carlson, it seemed like, literally, if he just went down there and spent 10 days and then also, playing at night, 10 days in the cage with a changeup machine, and he, he could come back and be okay. Walker's a little, well, I don't know. He has elevated the ball in the past. The ground balls hasn't really been a huge issue for him. So, he could come back that fast. Adam, you got any thoughts on that, or do you think his problems are going to take a little longer than that?
No, I was just going to say that I feel like he, in terms of trying to elevate more often, I feel like that has probably really kind of been an issue, really honestly, dating back to when he was an amateur as well. We did slug some 650 range when he was in single A in 2021, the year after he was drafted. But that approach and really trying to make sure lifting above 15 to 18 degrees has always been kind of something that, because he hasn't really actually produced too much in the minor leagues relative to what kind of power that he has. So
yeah,
that's why I was saying kind of seeing him promoted to the major leagues straight out of AA was kind of interesting.
See, I looked at his ground ball rates in the minors, and they didn't seem excessive. At 2021 and at A plus, 42.9% ground ball rate, 35% fly ball rate. Last year, AA, 45.5% ground ball rate, 31% fly ball, and then line drive rates at every stop over 20%. That to me screams line drive, hitter. But I haven't looked at his launch angle. That's interesting that his minor league launch angles would be more in the line drive territory. And if I remember, and I could be wrong, and I really hate to say this sort of officially, but if I remember right, early on in his time in Springfield, his ground ball rate was higher, and he was struggling to elevate the ball again against tougher competition. And then that settled in, and he started hitting a lot of home runs. But it took at least a couple months for that to settle in. Am I remembering right about that, or am I wrong about the ground ball rate?
Oh, I've just always known Walker has always had issues elevating, Walker elevating the ball, dating back to even when he was drafted. The issue is around Walker is that he's had screeching exit velos, but obviously the athleticism as an 18-year-old, he's not a natural born shortstop. He was a third baseman. And obviously really playing that power, he's not really matching barrel accuracy with that, with those 80 grade max exit velocities. So I feel like if to a degree, if he'd be slugging 600 at any level, but he hasn't, he's really failed to crack 500. So
yeah.
Well, if you look at his isolated power in Springfield, it was 204, and I wish I knew what the league average was in the Texas League.
It should be a lot higher than that.
Yeah, considering his power potential, how his power is graded at scouting wise, That's not that much above average. So yeah, and that's probably primarily due to hitting the ball on the ground more than you'd want from a guy who has 80 raw power or whatever his actual.
Because like a guy like, for example, like O'Neal Cruz is another 80 power guy who was routinely posting like in the 250s or higher in ISO power once he got physically mature. But I mean, Walker was always like a bigger guy. So like O'Neal was a taller guy, but he had to fill into that small forward like frame that wasn't even really built for baseball. He just happened to like grow into some power and is a slick middle infielder who can slug 600, and that's why he's good. But Walker, same thing in terms of the 80 power.
Yeah. I've always given Walker some credit, though. I mean, you guys are absolutely correct, and you got to look at the whole body of work. He struggled he didn't struggle. It's very similar to what he did in the majors, in that like he was still able to fight through and have a good batting average and things like that early in Double-A, and then it exploded on him. And so I've always kind of given him credit for the adjustments that led to the results in the end, instead of looking at the whole picture, and probably shouldn't do that. And I wonder if the Cardinals haven't done that as well, looking at what he did in the Arizona Fall League, looking what he did second half in Springfield, and reading perhaps too much into his high points and maybe not enough into his low points, because we're seeing some of the low stuff, come back again once he's challenged. So, but yeah, I agree with all of you guys. He's going to be fine. It's just going to take time. And
It's still early.
Yeah, it's very early, very early. He's got
3 years old.
Years really before we need to start worrying about Jordan Walker as a major leaguer. So
He can't drink yet. I mean, he's so young.
Yeah.
He's like 6 years older than my dog. So it's not very old.
Not very
Right.
old. Not very old. 19
Right,
years older than my dog. So
Yeah.
he's practically it. All right. Well, I don't really feel like we need to give any space, time, or words to Taylor Motter. He's on the roster. We don't understand it. He's not going to play any role there at all. I would really love to see Juan Yepez, but for some reason they hate Juan Yepez, and life is terrible. Not true. They just don't find it. They just want Yepez to play every day. But it does bother me that what I feel like is a legitimate major league hitter who could be a well above average hitter in the major leagues can't find a place to play on this team. But it's just true. Just is. So poor Juan Yepez. Let's move on to the Cardinals in general. And we have seen the worst of the Cardinals from my time covering the team since I joined the site. And many of us have probably seen the worst of the Cardinals ever, because some of you guys are young and you did not experience the 90s like I did. This very reminiscent of some of those 90s years where I would watch every day and suffer. So welcome to my childhood, friends. But yeah, so let's just throw it out there, and you can tell me what in the world is going wrong with the Cardinals. Like, what's happening right now? And we've started with Gabe, so we'll just keep starting with Gabe. I'm going to shift it around later, but Gabe, you can go.
I will say it depends on how you want to define the worst we've ever seen. From a win-loss perspective, you're absolutely right. That's the worst I've ever seen. 2017 was definitely worse.
Oh yeah,
but
I mean, that's kind of the point, though. Like 2017 was uglier by far.
Yeah.
Right. But somehow they won more games than this.
And we were riding high off of the 2006 World Series win, so we didn't really care at that point.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I would say that the things that stand out that are going wrong, because besides like the fact that for some reason they can get hits and get on base and just can't drive them home, I don't understand that at all. But that just seems to be sequencing / luck. So that's just something you got to just like, okay, this is annoying, but it'll change. The thing that they've done that they can change is, to me, their defense and base running have been really bad, and I don't know why. Outfield defense is sort of understandable. They've been playing Burleson and Walker mostly, and then whoever's in center field is not really a center fielder for the most part. So the outfield defense has just been terrible. And Edman has been weirdly bad. I don't understand that. And we're not stealing any bases. They increased the base size and nobody's stealing bases. I don't understand it. It's so confusing because this like stood out to me. I don't know if it was yesterday or 2 days ago when the Giants catcher stole second base. And I was like, what is going on? How are other teams stealing so easily? And we got Edman and O'Neal And Carlson's reasonably like we got plenty of guys who can steal in theory, but nobody's stealing bases. It doesn't make any sense to me. So we're not getting any additional runs from the base pass, and we're costing the team through defense, even with our good defenders. And that's just got to be better. I don't know if that's a coaching issue or what, but that's something that has probably cost the team a few wins, in my opinion. Like they keep losing by little things, and those little things are what's costing them. And I just don't get it because it's the same team as last year for the most part.
Yep. So I just kind of checked here because this has surprised me. The Cardinal way, right? That we talk about. One of the Cardinal ways is good base running, and one of the Cardinal traditions is stolen bases. So this team so far is 29th in baseball in a stat called BSR, base running runs, basically. And it just sort of is like a how would you describe it? Like a cumulative base running stat that includes like
first to third, stealing bases, extra base, that kind of thing. They're not
yeah,
taking
caught steals, things like all those things. Anything that happens basically on the base pass would be included, that they measure would be included here. So second to last, negative 3.9 in BSR. Last is the Skip Schumacher led Miami. I almost said Miami Dolphins for some reason. Miami.
Kind of. It's not far
sure.
off.
Miami is last at -5, and so yeah, that is unexpected. Let me pull up last year real fast because I would guess last year they were towards the top of the league in BSR. That would be my instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I am correct. They were 10th.
That was dragged down by Pools and Yachty, though. Pools and
yeah.
Yachty.
That was with Yachty and Pujols. Yeah, right.
And they don't have Bader, but Bader barely played last year, so that shouldn't be that big of a difference.
Yeah. Now I'm down the rabbit hole because I wonder if Tommy Edwin accounted for almost all of that plus 4.7. Tommy Edwin by himself was plus 8.4.
So he's great base runner.
So I mean, yeah, we've got Tommy Edwin and then a roster full of.
But what's Edmund this year?
I think I'm working my way around to that because that's gonna tell us what's wrong. I
think he's negative.
He's got to be negative.
Hasn't been on
negative 0.6. Negative 0.6.
How often has he even been on base?
Yeah. So maybe what we're discovering here is that the Cardinals have been a bad base running team for a while, but Tommy Edman hid that, and now it's showing up because he's struggling on the base pass.
Maybe.
Well, and they have some decently fast players, although that's not, everything that has to do with being a good base runner. But there are, I was very surprised to see how slow Nolan Arenado was. I don't know why. I don't know why I thought he was like average speed, maybe because he's a third baseman. They're not really known for being fast. But yeah. I looked and I think he might be the slowest person on the team now that Pujols and Yachty are gone. It's him and Goldschmidt are neck and neck. And yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize this, but you're absolutely right. Arenado's sprint speed is 9th percentile this year. Wow.
Yeah, it's brutal because I looked it up when the O'Neill stuff was going on, and I was like, is there anyone else on the team that's been not running very fast? I'm like, oof.
Every time Arenado hits a ground ball, I'm like, oh my God, how that much? I don't understand.
And he's quick at third base, but there's a difference between, I guess, being quick and being fast.
Yeah.
But
speaking of Arenado, his chase rate is the 10th percentile. He's just struggling. I mean, he's in a funk, and let's hope it doesn't last very long. But this is as bad as we've seen him be so far.
Which that's part of the issue too.
Yeah.
You don't have an MVP season from Arenado, but not even that. You're not having a mediocre season from him so far. But it's still early. But
between him and Contreras, we've had like a black hole offensively, either 4 or 5 or 3 at some point this entire year. And that's really tough, no matter how well everybody else is doing, especially since Contreras hits into double plays like Pujols did.
Yeah, I was gonna pull up Contreras' sprint speed. I don't know why I'm so obsessed with sprint speed all of a
It's
sudden
fun.
in
It's
base
fun.
running. But yeah, why not? He's got to be better than Yachty was. Okay, so
He's-
Contreras is 48%. He's nearly average. That's like
It's pretty up there
Yachty.
for a catcher.
He's an athletic
Yeah.
Right.
catcher. He's
That's
pretty.
why the
Yeah.
Arenado stuff was like, I'm like, what? How are
Yeah.
you fat or how are you slower than the catcher? Like,
I think
that's-
Dalton Varsho's like the fastest catcher in baseball, and then it's like Contreras is up there too.
Yeah.
I don't think that Yachty could have had a 48 rated sprint speed if he was riding on Delino DeShield's back. Like Vince Coleman, maybe Vince Coleman. If Vince Coleman was carrying Yachty Molina, maybe they would be 48th percentile. But yeah, Contreras is a virtual speedster. Actually, Contreras' stats, his rates. If you go look at Baseball Savant, there's a lot of red there. But it's just a matter of time for him. I think actually his stat line's starting to look a little bit better.
Oh yeah.
But,
He
oh,
just
yeah.
hit into a ton of double plays that have
yeah,
been
yeah.
at bad times.
But even with that, just a 424 or 425 slugging percentage, they're just not, generating. Despite hitting well, they're not generating enough offense. I did check, by the way. Let me make sure I'm on the right year because I did go to 2023. Their WRC plus weighted runs created plus a stat I love is 115, fifth in the league. So the offense is there. Their slugging percentage as a team is 430, which is not going to be that high. Eighth, not bad.
What do they rank in runs scored? Because
runs
really
scored.
different.
What I should look is their Pythag.
So the
runs
fifth
scored
is-
fifth offense.
Or
is-
sorry,
yeah, 16th, 111.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So they should have won more games, which is why they don't feel like, if you just watch it, they don't feel as bad as, like 2017 or 2007, some of these bad teams we've seen in the past, but they're finding ways every night to lose in the most inopportune moment. They'll give up a 3 home run instead of a 1-run double, or a couple nights ago it was a wild pitch and then an error, and I'm just like, things compounding. Their hits aren't lining up. You mentioned sequencing, Gabe. We can talk about sequencing a little bit because it is a legit topic here. Describe what hitting sequencing is.
Last night was a good example of bad sequencing. The Cardinals 8 hits, 6 walks. I think 2 of their hits were homers, 2 of their hits were doubles. Somehow that led to 3 runs in 9 innings.
Say Goldschmidt
That's
went
14 base runners.
He went 4 for 5 with 2 home runs, a double, and a single, but then came up in the top of the 9th with the bases loaded and hit into a game-ending double play.
Exactly. That's exactly. If you would have got
He had 2 solo homers.
that situation. So yeah, basically just like you can't combine your hits together to generate runs at the rate you're supposed to, because.
Also, go ahead.
But go ahead. No, continue.
No, I thought you were done, but I was just gonna say, like, take a shot every time the team lines into a double play. Like,
Yeah, they
right
lined into a double play.
yeah, like
too.
seriously, like every time
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but you see the hard hit balls, and that's a positive thing. And if they can continue to do that, I think they'll be fine. But it is tough early on to watch the offense.
Don't they have the second hardest hit rate in baseball?
Yeah, or they've been hitting a lot of hard liners that just haven't been played. They've hit them where they are instead of hitting them where they ain't, unfortunately.
It also seems like, I was making this observation today to someone else. I was like, it seems like when the Cardinals give up homers, there's always like at least 2 runners on base. They're never solo shots. It's always like a back-breaking homer. And then when the Cardinals
a couple grand
hit
slams
homers,
and 3-run home runs. Yeah.
When they hit homers, they're solo shots.
Yeah. So just to check, so whichever one of you, Gabe or Adam, asked this, they are 6th in the league in hard hit percentage. But then I was going to check this. 6th in the league in hard hit percentage, 10th in the league in barrel percentage. So that's not bad. It seems like they haven't been able to really barrel up a bunch of balls. But maybe that's just a couple examples that I'm like Burleson should have a higher barrel rate than what he does, considering his contact rate and how hard he hits it. He hasn't been able to center anything, not anything, but center things at the rate that he should. Although I wonder if today's home run was probably a pretty good
Probably.
shot. Yeah.
I imagine homers are usually barreled.
Yeah, almost always. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it just okay. So that's the offense. The offense is there, but the double plays, the sequencing, things like that, the errors in the field. We talked about the defense a little bit. Let's talk about pitching. Like
Mm.
so far, the bullpen has been pretty good. Maybe really good at times, except for the off game for Helsley here and there, talking about bad luck. But then the rotation has been pretty awful, but yet not awful at the same time. Like they
Yeah.
started terribly, but like lately it's actually been pretty good. But like where they rank is not good. Um, is this a pitching staff that's going to survive or not? I'll start with Adam. Start with Adam this time.
I think it's gonna take a tweak, and I think the biggest elephant in the room is, although we all love Jake Woodford, I think he's probably the odd man out at this point. Wainwright might be the guy who's going to come back and replace him just because of legacy, but I had tweeted about this yesterday where I feel like, I love watching Adam Wainwright, but I feel like he's no longer a rotation caliber starter in a team that wants to, compete. So I feel like moving on to the potential the next guy in line, like a Liberatore or a Graceffo, maybe in a couple months when he's ready. Tinkens will be ready down the line in a year or so, but obviously that's later on. But this year, there's plenty of options they could fill in with, and I feel like they're really dragging their feet in terms of potential immediate remedies they could be taking. And it's unfortunate. It's a little frustrating to watch. And I think the biggest issue is really with that rotation. Like you mentioned, Jason, it's good, but it's also not good at the same time. It's like a paradox.
Yeah. So just to make this clear, Woodford, 24 innings, not an unsubstantial number of innings, 14% K rate, 14.7, 6% walk rate. That's pretty decent ratio. But home run per 9, 2.5 is terrible. His BABIP is 325 against, decent ground ball rate, but his FIP, fielding independent pitching, which takes out all the, basically what he is responsible for. 6.82, his ERA is 5.47, a negative 0.4 WAR. That's pretty terrible. Yeah.
I have a question. Was we all love Jake Woodford. Was that sarcastic or was that genuine?
What was it again?
When you said, we all love Jake Woodford, was that sarcastic or genuine?
Did I say that?
The greatest guy?
No, he did.
I said that. I was just saying in general, like, hoping is a decent guy. Is he actually like not?
Oh, I mean,
No, he is. I'm sure he is.
Okay. I didn't know if it was like anything like
No. I thought you meant as a player, and I was like,
oh no. No, as a person, I'm sure he's a great guy. But
Yeah.
as a pitcher,
It's hard to say something mean. Yeah.
No.
I also just want to point out the greatest success of this podcast so far is that I did say Jake Woodford and not Jake Westbrook, because I have called Jake Woodford Jake Westbrook more times than anything. Like it was a legit thing. And then I started doing it on purpose because I couldn't help myself, because I'm that kind of person. So
and they are similar pitchers too, or at least
yeah, they kind of are. Yeah, like equally bad. So yeah,
I like that confusion.
Actually, Jake Woodford could really only aspire to become Jake Westbrook. That would be like his peak. So
well.
But I'm with you, sort of, Adam. I mean, like it looks like I was kind of thinking, why haven't they made a move? Liberatore looks so good down in AAA. They want him to progress as a starter anyway. Why haven't they made a move here? And it seems like they're waiting for Wainwright to come back. And it does seem like, despite a fairly decent start the other day, not great, that Woodford will be the odd man out. Wainwright will come in, and then we're just looking at that much more time before we see any real change to the rotation. Because I don't know about you, but I've got pretty low expectations that Wainwright's going to suddenly come back in and be a stopper for this team. I just, I had him penciled in at number 5, and that's where I kind of think he still is. So,
I mean, if you're expecting him to be a stopper, I think that's just setting yourself up to be disappointed.
Exactly.
But will he be a competent major league starter? I think he will. And
yeah.
And you mentioned
does this team? I mean, I guess that's what I'm getting at, though. It's like right now is a one more replacing a below replacement level guy with a competent major league starter. Is that going to make the difference right now?
Well, I mean, the guys who you would expect to be average-ish or better, I would expect them to pitch better. Like, I don't think we could just take how they pitched so far and be like, this is our pitching staff. This is how we're going to pitch. And because
a combination of like regressing to their mean and then changing, like raising that floor a little bit is gonna hopefully come together. And it just is nice. There's something about having Wainwright back where I'm just like, I don't know why, but it's nice having him back. It would be nice. I don't know. Just seeing his face in the dugout is reassuring to me, even if he's not like a top of the rotation starter anymore. There's something about Wainwright being there. I don't know why. It's just like,
no, I mean, I would agree. I would much rather,
back.
Even though I'm not like super excited about Wainwright, the stuff, you know, if you give me the choice between watching a Steven Matz start, and I like Matz. You guys know I like Matz. Watching a Steven Matz start or watching Wainwright, I'm going to watch Wainwright because of who he is and what he's done. Even though probably I'd be pretty convinced that Matz is going to have a better, not career. I don't mean that. I'm trying to think of the word. Better season from this point forward than Wainwright. But let me just run through a couple of these FIPs. So again, fielding independent pitchings, and normally with the Cardinals, your ERAs outperform your FIPs, but the FIPs aren't terrible. So you've got, this is just the starters. Jordan Montgomery has been the team's, can we call Montgomery an ace? I think we almost can. I mean, he's been pretty special. 0.9 FWAR so far in 5 starts is a number.
Wow.
Yeah. So 2.77 FIP for Montgomery. And then Flaherty, actually, have you guys looked at these things? You guys just tell me, what do you guys think Jack Flaherty's FIP is?
Oh, a lot of walks. So
550.
550? Yeah. 517 for Flaherty. Number two on the team among starters. 526 for Matz. 555 for Mikolas. I bet his start tonight though, or today, isn't in this yet, would be my guess. So it's going to drop because he had a good outing today. And then Woodford 6.82 FIP. So yeah, every single one of those except for Montgomery is well below league average. Yeah, not good. And ERAs aren't much better. Is this salvageable? Like, is this going to turn into a good staff, or what are we looking at here?
Well, I think one of the, I mean, not everybody's a fan of the stat, but one of the stats you got to look at is XFIP.
Yeah.
Because Cardinals have been giving up home runs at starters have been giving up home runs at a fairly ridiculous rate.
Yeah.
It's a big difference, isn't it? Last I checked.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah. So I'll just start at the worst ones, like as far as the biggest difference, like Flaherty's XFIP, because Flaherty has not given up home runs. That hasn't been his problem. So his XFIP and FIP are basically the same, 5.18 to 5.17. Montgomery's home run rate is repressed, so his XFIP is quite a bit higher than his actual FIP, 3.87, but still fine, still above average. Matt's 4.1, Mikolas 4.4, and then we don't really care about Woodford 4.67. So yeah, and then the home run per fly ball rate for both Matz and Mikolas are up near 20. So that's not gonna. Yeah.
So I think it's salvageable for that reason. Basically, is because I must have seen it wrong, but I could have sworn I saw the Cardinal starters XFIP was like 4th in baseball. May have changed. Maybe I didn't see that correctly. And maybe you wouldn't expect it to be exactly equal to FIP, because I know Matt's runs high homer to fly ball percentages his entire career, not 20+% high, but you know, FIP will probably be higher than his XFIP historically speaking. But I'm pretty sure they rank fairly high by that as starters, which is weird to say, which is probably what turns some people off that stat, quite honestly.
Yeah, right. So yeah, but okay, so I did pull that up. They are 13th now. This is probably going to go up. 13th and this would be just starters. We'll talk about relievers XFIP here in a second because that's really good news. 13th in baseball with a 4.44 among starter FIP. So that's a sign of good things to come. Their FIP. Let me make sure I said that right. That was XFIP. Their fielding independent pitching is scroll down. No, scroll back up. Oh, it's sorted backwards. I was like, wow, they're top of the league. No, they're at the bottom.
Number 18 in baseball,
25th,
started
25th, 5.05.
You don't want
So,
that number to be high. Got it. You
yeah,
want it to be low. One thing about Michaelis is, and Devin had an article looking at Michaelis that went out this morning, and I helped him edit it, so that's how I know it very well. Is it doesn't, if you look at his sort of peripheral stats, his location, his spin rate, and everything like that, it looks the same as normal.
Yeah.
It's not the same as like that really good year he had where he was, locating everything perfectly. But ever since then, when he's had, his still above average years. So the only difference is he's getting his fastball is getting crushed. His sinker, and I think these are sinker, four-seamer. I have to pull up the article, but his pitches are getting crushed. And it's in the same location, spin rate's all the same. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. We're looking through this trying to find a reason why, and the only reason that we can think of is just baseball's really hard sometimes.
Yeah.
A tough luck sort of thing, and he's only been 25 innings, so maybe that will stabilize after a while. But it's just weird that all at the beginning of the season he's getting crushed, and there's no obvious reason. Like, oh, his velocity's down or spin rate's down. It's not that.
Right. Yeah, Devin kind of, I wouldn't say stumbled across, but definitely found something that I've been writing about for years with Mikolas, that every year, even when he was injured, like the core of his stats are really stable. One of the most stable pitchers that we've seen. It just really depends on that home run rate, and that can be pretty variable. So when his home run rate is exceptional, like it was in 2018, he's one of the best pitchers in the league. When it's not, like in 2019, he struggles, even though everything else about it's the same. It's really just boils down to home runs. And right now he's just allowing twice as many home runs as he normally would, basically. And I don't think that's going to hold up.
And I think opponent is a factor. He faced the Blue Jays offense. He played at Coors Field where he's always sucked. And I don't remember his other opponents. Did he face the Braves?
I'm not sure.
Probably.
His game log. If we
He had to have faced the Braves. He pitched opening day, I think, right?
Blue
Yeah.
Toronto.
I think he's faced the Braves at Coors Field. What?
So Toronto, Atlanta, Colorado, at Seattle, Pittsburgh.
Besides Pittsburgh, that's brutal. Although Pittsburgh, I don't know what the hell's going on with them.
The season is so weird.
Well, it's that one start in Colorado. You gave it 3 home runs. Not that you erase. I'm not big on erasing things that actually happen, but if we're going to give anyone a pass on anything, it would be Mikolas in Colorado. Is not going to be what he's going to do in Busch. If he just erased that, then a lot of his stuff is pretty much right on. So. Yeah. So Adam dropped a note here in our chat. The Cardinals bullpen, XFIP. What's going on with the bullpen, Adam? Go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, no, they've been getting some very quality innings out of their bullpen. You've got guys like, Zach Thompson has struggled as of recently, but to start the inning, he was throwing fire. Verhagen, same exact issue. He was starting very well, but I think both of them will be fine towards like the latter end of the year and continuing, just because they're swing and miss guys. Hicks, we've seen what he's done the past few innings, has been one of the best relievers in baseball since he started ditching that slider and started really going to that 2-point sweeper. Stratton and Montgomery, not Montgomery, so he's not a reliever. Stratton has been fantastic as well, but you've got 4 really, really good guys who you could turn to at any point and to try to get you an out. Not even to mention Genesis Cabrera. I forgot his name. There could be somebody else, but that obviously we saw the lineup, the defense, the lineup and the bullpen have been fantastic. The defense obviously was arguably probably the best in baseball last year. This year, it's about the league average to start out. I think that'll improve, but I think it's that bullpen that's really, really been carrying the team. You've got 5 guys who can absolutely just go out there and just throw gas and can shut a team out 1, 2, 3. And I think that's probably the least a bit of concern going forward. This bullpen has been fantastic.
Yeah. I feel so redeemed with Drew Verhagen because Gabe, you did a little of this too, if I remember right, either you or Blake last year, talking about how it looked like he should be better than this. It's like, it's there, the stuff is there, but yet the results. And now I'm like, I would say that I got it right, except towards the end of the year, I gave up. So I really can't. But it just seemed like it was just something about it was just there. And yeah, his ERA is high, 4.23. So that's kind of similar to last year, but his FIP is just 2.95. So, and his core stats, K to walk ratio looks really good. And yeah, we'll see if he holds up. I mean, all you have to do is hope that he's going to be a middle to, not a closer or anything behind Gallegos. If you can get that kind of K rate and walk rate out of a middle reliever, you're doing pretty well. So we kind of covered pretty much every element of it. So I guess I'll just sort of ask you as we kind of wind down here, can the Cardinals overcome this and win the division? Okay, Adam, I see you nodding, so go with you.
Yeah, I think given where the team ranks in the peripheral stats and the expected stats, it's very clear to see that the batted ball events could be going more the Cardinals' way at some point, especially given how hard they're hitting the balls. I think Gabe mentioned the hard hit percentage, but
yeah,
I think given where the defense is, given where the lineup is, 1 through at least 6 or 7, they're playing pretty well. Reinforcements in the rotation are on their way. And, the defense, I think, will clean up as the season goes by. I think, it's very rough and it's a rough start in terms of the record. But I think overall, you see the run differential is about 500. They're 11-13 in terms of Pythag. But I think we'll be fine as a fan base. We're very spoiled as Cardinals fans. I've realized since writing for the Marlins before that we're so used to winning. So now when it's like 1-9-15 start, we're all freaking out. But I think we all need to Aaron Rodgers, RELAX, and we'll be completely fine.
Yeah.
Gabe, do you agree?
Yes, I'm worried they put too big of a hole to start the year because those wins and losses are banked in. So if you think you're a 90-win team, hypothetically speaking, then if they're a 90-win team going forward, they're now going to win like 85 games. However, I want to share something that Joe Sheehan posted in his newsletter about the Cardinals start. He says that 1985 Cards started 7-11 and won 101 games in the NL pennant. The 1996 team was 17-26 before straightening out, winning the NL Central and coming with a win of the pennant. The 2002 team, 14-19 on its way to a division title. All of those teams, of course, had fewer playoff spots available to them, and everyone played in a tougher division. It's a long season. That was just his point. And obviously last year, I mean, the last few years, I feel like we've been basically 500 at the All-Star break. And then we would like go off in August or something. So we just need to go on an extended run and get back to 500 first and then focus on the next thing. And then it'll be a lot more manageable if you just focus on trying to get to a 500 point. As a fan, I mean, obviously the Cardinals are going to do whatever they do. Just like the fan mindset, just, all right, let's hope for 500 first. And then once we get there, then we can hope for more. And I feel like that'll be easier for me at least.
Heather?
So I pulled up an old article I wrote from 2019, and it's called "The Cardinals Are Having Their Worst May Ever." And I went and looked. So at the time when I wrote it, the Cardinals were 6-14 in the month of May in 2019. And they went on in that month to be 9-18, which is a .333 win percentage for the month. It was brutal. And that's why I wrote that article, because I'm like, this is one of the worst months of baseball I've ever seen. And so what are they now? 10 and
they'll be 10-16 today. Now it looks like they were 9-16 entering the day, I think.
So they're already better than that May. And they went on in 2019 to win, win 91 games. 91 games. So what I'm saying is it feels worse because it is the beginning and they're like setting the tone for the season. But at any, see, 10 and so any 25, 26 game period of baseball, stretch of baseball, you're going to have weird streaks like this. It's just when it happened at the beginning of the season, it does feel a lot worse, but there's still plenty of baseball to be played. A lot of the peripheral stats look good. And I think as it starts heating up and the weather gets nice and it's going to be fun watching baseball again, and we're all going to be happy to be alive. We're not on the West Coast anymore.
Yeah, right.
Not playing on the moon in Colorado. It's going to be fun again. Just need to, you gotta have the lows so that you can appreciate the highs, right?
Yeah.
This too shall pass. This too shall pass. The highs, this too shall pass. Lows, this too shall pass. I think it'll be okay. I think.
Yeah, I want to agree with you guys, and I'm not saying that I disagree with you. I'm just starting to kind of do the math, and the math is getting harder and harder. And what concerns me actually is not necessarily the Cardinals' rough start, because I think I'm with you guys. Like, they're going to be above 500. It's going to be, they're going to be a better team than this. What actually concerns me is that Milwaukee's already built up. Well, I mean, Pittsburgh's ahead of them. I'm not going to take Pittsburgh that serious yet. So if this, save the tape here, and if I'm wrong about Pittsburgh, then you guys can come out at me. But I'm not looking at Pittsburgh as the problem yet. I'm looking at Milwaukee as the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I don't know if they played today or not, but Baseball Reference has them at 16-9, which I just happen to have that side up. So they've got a 7-game, cushion in wins above us right now. We've got, 6 wins to go to get to 500. That's just a lot of wins to make up. And I could definitely see a scenario where we play from this point forward better than Milwaukee and then still can't catch them because they've already got wins in the bank and we've already got losses in the bank. So I could see that. And then the Padres, the Dodgers, Arizona, the Mets, Philadelphia, no one's really running away with things either. And so, because I was thinking if they don't win the division, they ain't going to get a wild card, but now I'm not so sure. From the way everyone's going right now, it looks like the NL is just kind of beating up on each other with a couple teams standing out, and maybe a wild card could be in play. But this is a season when they should have won the division, and this slow start has put a damper on that. Doesn't mean it's not possible. It's just going to be that much harder.
So one optimism about the Brewers falling off a little bit. Brandon Woodruff is hurt, and he's going to be hurt.
Oh, right.
And Adrian Hauser's hurt, and Aaron Ashby's hurt. Like, their starting situation is not quite as ideal as they were hoping. They're relying on Wade Miley and Colin Ray. I don't know who that is. That's 2/5 of the rotation right now. Peralta and Burns are still healthy, and Lauer is fine. But yeah, I thought that they were really dependent on Woodruff and Burns and Peralta to be like a 90-win team. And if you remove one of those guys from the equation, hypothetically, like, they're like a 500 team or worse, maybe. I don't know. So maybe your young hitters may have compensated for that a little bit. And Garrett Mitchell, I think he's out for the year. He was one of their promising prospects who got off to a hot start, I think. So yeah, that's the one thing that's making me think, well, they're a lot more reachable than if they were 16-9 with Brandon Woodruff and with Aaron Ashby as part of their pitching. So that's they might still be reachable. Yeah.
I will say I'm very concerned about the month of May because it looks schedule-wise pretty brutal.
Again,
oh, really?
I think they play, 31 days in May, and I think they play 29 games.
Oh,
It was because I was filling out the schedule, and it looks, they don't play on the 1st, and they don't play on the 31st or the 11th. So they have three off days in May.
Are the opponents tough, or is it just the not off day thing? Because
there's no off days. They play the Angels, Detroit, Cubs, Boston, Milwaukee, Dodgers. So there's a stretch in there where they play the Brewers and Dodgers. for 7 games in a row in Boston.
Yeah, there's a you got it exactly right. Yeah, Red Sox, Brewers, Dodgers for 2
I don't
weeks.
think that's competing with April's schedule, so I'm
No.
not quite as worried. But yeah,
Mhm.
the off day thing could be a factor.
And
definitely.
then they get at Cincinnati, at Cleveland, and then the Royals come in. So it's a mixed bag on talent, mostly not good teams, but it is a lot of games in a row.
It's like 19 in a row.
Yeah,
Hey, maybe if they get hot, that'll be a good thing. I don't know.
could be.
Right? Yeah. If they're playing well, then maybe it'll be good. But I am kind of worried about that just because the 19 in a row, and I think the England game in
It's
there.
June, right?
It's like
The
flashbacks to
London game would be in there?
2020.
No way.
No, it's gotta
Oh,
be.
that's in June. Okay, never mind.
Yeah,
Sorry.
they gotta have off days on.
Edit that
probably-
out. Edit that out.
Yeah. They gotta have bookended off days on that, I would think, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they
let's see,
do. Oh,
they?
two. Yeah,
Okay.
two travel to get there, and then one off day out coming back. So
That May is why having incredible depth, position player wise at least, will really pay off.
Mhm.
I think.
Well,
So,
that's kind of why I think we'll see Walker back in like maybe by the end of May, June.
yeah, that might be a great time to get Liberatore active too, the 1st of May.
Mhm.
yeah.
And then maybe kind of run with a 6-man rotation with only 2 days off and both of them being early in the month. You could sneak in Liberatore for a couple starts and give, maybe push Mikolas back a little bit. So we'll see. I don't know. See what they do. But all right. Okay. We've hit our time cap, so I want to hear from you guys if you have anything. I didn't prep you for this, but I kind of I'm going to throw it at you anyway. One thing, if you have anything that the Cardinals need to do different from this point forward. And we'll start with, since we're starting with Gabe today, let's start with Gabe. One thing that the Cardinals need to do different from this point
Steal
forward.
bases, please. Use your legs. The success rate of the league is so much higher, and for some reason the Cardinals are just not taking advantage. I don't understand. I think there was something that saw something that Marmol doesn't like to steal when losing, which I don't know if that's. I mean, I get it. You don't want to like getting out on the base paths, but it's not really helping to not steal. Maybe when they start winning, we'll steal more bases, winning more often. Where because we're like losing almost immediately in these games, so maybe that's what the real problem is. But yeah, I feel like they should take advantage of the fact that hypothetically speaking, they can steal. So take that extra base. That's the one thing that the defense feels kind of fluky, not fluky, but like definitely Edman. But you can control if you steal bases or not to a certain extent, especially with like Edman. He's like 85% successful in his career.
Yeah.
Without the increased bases.
Right.
So yeah, that would be my one thing that I think the Cardinals should do: steal bases.
Adam.
Yeah, so I wanted to potentially offer a remedy for the rotation. So historically, the Cardinals have been capable of relying on Mikolas and Wainwright to eat innings, even if they're not like the power guys they never really were, obviously, but they compensate for that. If the struggles continue with Mikolas and that coupled with, I don't think Wainwright is mentioned, I don't think he's a potential starting caliber pitcher anymore. Because you're no longer to eat innings from them anymore, and because you have the luxury of having guys like 4 elite fireballers before you even get to Gallegos and Helsley, that we talked about before, just those 4 pitchers, why not try to implement, at least for a while, a potential opener strategy where you're throwing one of these guys out there and seeing what they can do, or potentially Helsley or Gallegos themselves, and then turn the ball over to a guy like Mikolas or Wainwright, or God forbid, Jake Woodford, he continues to be on the roster. Maybe getting an inning or 2 out of those, fireballers first, and setting the lineup and setting the tone and getting the hitters, out of whack, and then handing it over to a command control guy and potentially seeing if he can eat 3 to 4 innings instead of having to eat 6 to 7. Because I don't think you can really count on Wainwright, especially with that velo being so much further down. Woodford struggling, and Mikolas, trending on the up, especially with that start today, but he's definitely not a power pitcher, and in the event that he is losing command and control, that finesse isn't going to work. And I think at that point, it wouldn't be off the table to try to implement an opener strategy where you are inducing swing and misses from the get-go in that first inning, especially when we've seen the struggles setting the tone out of the first inning with all these first inning runs. So that's my idea, that I think if the struggles continue, that's something they could pivot to.
Yeah, I think Matz kind of fits in that category too. That Matz has
Mm.
always struggled later in games, and so if you know you're going to get 4 or 5, you're going to get 4 or 5 good out of Matz. And so if you had a Liberatore or you had a well, with Palante struggling, I don't even know. Yeah. There's some guys they could use as openers. And yeah, that's an interesting idea. Heather, what do you got? One thing they need to do differently besides stop playing on the West Coast.
So we talked about base running, we talked about pitching. Even though the offense isn't bad, I'm gonna go offense. I think Nolan Arenado specifically, I'm gonna call him out, needs Nolan Arenado, if you're listening, he needs to hit the ball in the air and hit the ball harder. It looks like his ground ball rate is near career high, if not career high, and his hard hit percentage is near a career low. Yeah, almost a career low, not quite. No, it is a career low. No, it's not. It's almost a career low. It's a 1/10 of a percentage point higher. So yeah, that's my 2 things. I think once Nolan Arenado starts hitting the ball, we're gonna see the sequencing pick up. We can go more in the Cardinals' favor. So that's my thing.
That's good. I've got a couple different things that I could go with. I'm tempted just to say what they need to do differently is win.
Yeah.
But I won't be that trite.
Have they tried winning?
Yeah, I've tried winning. That might work.
I don't know. This is a suggestion.
But I will say that I think what I'll go with is outfield defense matters. I think that some of these defensive miscues that we've had, now Walker was a big part of that, unfortunately. But I'm not, as much as I like, Alec Burleson, I'm not married to the idea of him starting in the outfield. I'd like to see him more at DH. I think that's sort of his long-term kind of thing. And I'm kind of be a little bit inconsistent here by saying that I'd like to see Nolan Gorman more at second, which would hurt the defense a little bit, but it give and take here a little bit. But I don't mind seeing Lars Nootbaar in center. I think that's a good strategy long term. But less Burleson, more Carlson, more O'Neill. Still watching your matchups, but don't be afraid to get Carlson in there as a late inning defensive replacement, especially if they have the lead.
Yeah.
Because then Burleson, first of all, Burleson's bat compared to Carlson's is fairly marginal anyway. At this point, we don't know what Burleson can be, but based on what we saw in the minors, there's not a whole lot of reason to expect Burleson to be much more than a 110 to 120 WRC plus hitter, which is kind of the range Carlson should end up to. But anyway, get those defensive replacements out there, get them a couple bats a day, and kind of solidify things a little bit. And more Juan Yepez, because the poor guy is just down there in Memphis hitting home runs. So
I have a question for you, Jason.
yeah.
So if you want Gorman, I mean, I don't disagree with you. If you want Gorman at second and Burleson at DH, would you be cool with like Donovan and left field or something? No.
Okay. Depends. It depends.
You want
Last year's version of Donovan, maybe some. Yeah. I haven't looked that closely at Donovan's defensive stats in the outfield either, so that's why I'm a little bit hesitant, because defense does matter. I would assume he's okay, not great, better than Tommy Edman, but not as bad as as Burleson. I think you can shift these guys around a lot. I just don't necessarily think that Burleson needs to be out there for 9 innings every
Sure.
game.
Oh, yeah.
He has been. But and then also, and I haven't put together all my thoughts on this, but if you'll remember back in the fall, I mentioned Nolan Gorman working out in the outfield as a potential strategy. And he is more athletic than Burleson. His stats wouldn't be any better at this point, but I don't think it would take him that long to learn out there. I'm not saying that you would do it now, but I just think you got to some point start looking at where you want these guys to be long term. And that's why I say Nootbaar in center field is a pretty good option, because long term, if your outfield is some combination of Jordan Walker and Lars Nootbaar and maybe Carlson, maybe Burleson, maybe someone else. Nootbaar looks like the center fielder there, depending on Carlson again. Or maybe Gorman is out there in the outfield because you've got Mason Wynn and Tommy Edman in the infield, or some other combination of players. Anyway, I haven't committed to that yet, but for now, I'd like to see Gorman in the field more, and I'd like to see more aggressive changes with the outfield defense, particularly later in games, so we're not throwing games away late. So that's it.
I do think Marmol or the Cardinals agree with you, because I don't know what the last few games is, but he has played a lot more second base after starting at DH for like the first 10 games or something like that.
Yeah, I think Donovan had a little bit of injury there for a little bit, and Gorman played quite a bit, and now they're like in love with Paul DeYoung, which I can't blame them for that because he has hit. So, but that's a future podcast. We'll see. We'll give DeYoung a chance to settle in before we dig into DeYoung.
Yeah.
So.
Should we just do a quick buy or sell on Paul DeYoung?
See what?
Should we do a quick buy or sell Paul DeYoung's?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, buy or sell on Paul DeYoung. I'm gonna have to change my answer. Heather, what do you got? Buy or sell Paul DeYoung?
What does buy mean? That he's gonna hit?
More or less.
More or less. Yeah.
I'll believe in him. I think maybe I might be in the minority there, so I'll throw him a buy.
Adam.
I'll say sell. I mean, there's plenty of options now, and especially coming up in the minor leagues. I think Paul DeYoung the ship has sailed. That he's had his chances, and I think if he shows out, there's a chance that he could get picked up again, like on a 1-year deal or by some other team. But I think I'm not too optimistic on Paul DeYoung.
Gabe.
I'll say the league average version of Paul DeYoung. I'll buy. I will go that far right now.
Defense is good.
Yeah. Which he's a good player if he's a league average hitter
Mhm.
at shortstop. But as far as like what he's doing right now, no, I'm not going to buy that yet.
Yeah, I wrote the article about it a couple days ago. If you read the article, you'd probably think that I was going to say sell on the good version of DeYoung. Now that I've watched him a little bit more, I've never seen DeYoung so balanced, and I've never seen his swing so simple. And I realize it's just a few days, and when you're hitting like he's hitting, everything looks good.
Mhm.
So I'm a hard sell with small sample size stuff, but I like what I see, and it's hard to shake what I'm seeing. So I'm gonna buy it, and I'm gonna regret it.
He had a fly out last night that looked real pretty. The swing.
He hit a home run today.
Did he? I didn't see the end.
Well,
of the game.
it was the old version of DeYoung home run. Like it was a towering fly ball that barely
Mhm.
made it over the wall. His swing didn't look as good on that one, but his balance looked good. But that's the thing. Like if he's hitting more line drives and making a little bit better contact with those fly ball rates, that's all it really takes for him to go from an 85 to a 95 WRC plus. Just takes that little bit of power.
Another hit too. The size of home run. Didn't he get two
Yeah, the
hits?
double looked really good. Yeah,
We got a double
yeah,
too.
a good double driven to the wall. That one, it was probably one of his best swings that I've seen from him since 2019. Honestly, like, yeah, it was a breaking ball. It was center breaking ball, but I mean, you know how terrible he is against breaking balls. Just a nice, balanced, easy swing with a lot of power, drove it right to the wall. So, but then the home run was an uppercut again. So,
Yeah.
you know,
And the fly out you mentioned, Heather, I think that was on a fastball that was up in the zone. I don't know if that was the same ball, but he was whiffing on every fastball up in the zone last year. So that gives him hope too. If he can,
I'm telling you, his balance, the simple approach, like it's just that little bit of extra contact is all someone needs to kind of return to league average. And I'm buying it for now. I'm going to regret it, but I'm buying it.
He's yet to whiff in the zone this year. I mean, obviously, I don't know if it was this year, if he actually done it, like if he whiffed today, because the zone contact rate through 100% is just through this morning. But
Yeah.
the swinging strike percentage is down too. So small sample size, but we'll see. He's hitting the ball pretty hard, and he's still lifting it. Or actually,
I think he is. I think what will matter is that if he goes through a 2-week slump, like he will, because he's still not a good contact hitter. If he goes through that slump, where his mind ends up and where his body ends up, because that's what happens. You make these adjustments, and maybe they hold on for a week or two, but then you devolve back into who you are. Batters don't change.
When can we start trusting these like swinging, like chase rate? Isn't that fairly early? And not now, but like something like 70 plate appearances or something for like chase rate and swinging strike percentage or something?
Yeah. Those stabilize pretty quickly. I think those are like under 100 PAs, both of them.
Really?
I think the strikeout might be higher, but walks I think is pretty low. And
Yeah,
play
that stuff is not. I've never been able to catch up on that kind of thing. So yeah, I defer to you guys on that. As far as walks would be the low. I've seen a lot of Cardinals. Their walk rates have not stabilized after. So it's been 100 or 200 before you really see it coming back to normal. But what do I know? So, well, hey, good podcast, great conversation, and we will be back in 2 weeks. We're going to go back to our minor league interviews, and so I'm hoping to get a couple of those set up. And next time around, maybe we're going to have Mizzou starter and 2020 draft pick for the Cardinals, tearing things up down in A-ball. You've heard the name probably. Ian Bedell will be joining us, so look for that in a couple weeks. But for Heather and Gabe and Adam and everyone else at Viva Alberto's, have a great evening, and we'll see you on Saturday morning. Thanks, guys.